2. August 8, 1963. A quiet railway line in the English countryside became the scene of one of the boldest heists in history. In this corner of the bucolic south of England, a Royal Mail train was making its way from London to Glasgow. Inside its carriages were sacks upon sacks of cash being transported between the Bank of England and the Bank of Scotland. In total, it carried £2.6 million in gold sovereigns, banknotes, and other valuables. Today, that would be more than $60 million. And, as the train made its way through the sleepy village of Menmore, a gang of 15 men were waiting for it to arrive. They'd spent weeks planning this meticulously, and now their goal was simple: stop the train, grab the money and get away before anyone knew what had happened. But how could they stop a heavy steel locomotive barreling through the English countryside? And who are these men daring to take it on? Our story begins several weeks earlier in London. A group of criminals, led by an enigmatic mastermind named Buster Edwards, decided to pull off the impossible: rob the Royal Mail train. But even while committing a daring heist, these men weren't all cut from the same cloth. Some were career criminals with lengthy rap sheets. Others were respectable businessmen with no criminal history. And some were somewhere in between. For example, there was Bruce Reynolds, one of the masterminds behind the robbery. He'd served time in prison for armed robbery and burglary, and had even escaped from Wormwood Scrubs prison. Then there was Ronald Biggs, another key member of the gang. Biggs was a former soldier who deserted during the Second World War and had been sentenced to 14 years in prison for his crimes. Despite this shady past, he'd gotten himself a job working on London's famed transport system, driving buses and later trains. This would come in handy for the upcoming heist. Edwards gathered his motley crew of criminals, including Biggs, and laid out his plan. It was risky, requiring them to coordinate with each other flawlessly. But the reward was too great not to attempt. Their first order of business was to find a secluded spot along the train route, where they could pull off their heist without interference. They chose a remote section of track near Cheddington, about 30 miles northwest of London. Here, the railway line passed through a long tunnel, providing the perfect opportunity to ambush the train. With the location secured, it was time to lay low and wait for the right moment to strike. The fateful day arrived soon enough. On August 8, 1963, the Royal Mail train left London on its journey to Glasgow. Inside its carriages were sacks full of gold sovereigns, banknotes and other valuables totaling £2.6 million. Today, that's more than $60 million. Adds. The train made its way along the tracks. The gang of 15 men lay in wait near the secluded spot in Cheddington. Their plan was simple, yet audacious. One of their number would walk onto the railway line and stop traffic using a red flag. When the train approached, another would jump onto the carriage roof and open the connecting doors between the mail cars. The rest of the gang would then storm the cars and make off with the valuables inside. All this had to happen quickly and in precise coordination to ensure success. Adds. The Royal Mail train approached. The gang sprang into action. One man stood on the tracks, waving a red flag, stopping traffic in both directions. Another leaped onto the top of the train and opened the connecting doors between the mail cars. Meanwhile, the rest of the gang, wearing masks and gloves, rushed towards the train. They rammed the driver's cab door open and overpowered the driver, beating him unconscious with a heavy iron bar. Now that the driver was incapacitated, the men wasted no time in loading the mail sacks onto waiting trucks. They worked quickly, methodically unloading the train and stashing the loot away. Once the last sack was loaded, they jumped into their getaway vehicles and vanished into the night. The entire robbery took just 30 minutes. When the dust settled, it became clear that the Royal Mail train had been robbed of a staggering amount of money and valuables, more than £2.6 million in total. Today, that would be more than $60 million. It was the largest robbery in British history and shocked the nation. News of the audacious heist spread like wildfire, making headlines around the world. The audacity of the crime and the sheer amount of money stolen left people in disbelief. How could such a brazen robbery go down, and who were the criminals responsible? The authorities wasted no time in launching one of the largest manhunts in British history. Scotland Yard sent every available officer to hunt down the perpetrators. But despite their best efforts, many of the gang members slipped through their fingers. The police did catch up with a few of them. Eventually, most of the gang was brought to justice and convicted for their roles in the robbery. However, a huge portion of the money was never recovered. Some of it turned up in the Netherlands, but most of it remained missing, leaving the authorities baffled. Buster Edwards, the mastermind behind the heist, was sentenced to 15 years in prison. His brother John, who drove the getaway van, received 10 years. Other members of the gang also received lengthy prison sentences. As for Ronald Biggs, he managed to escape to Brazil and evade capture for decades. Eventually, he was extradited back to the UK in 2001 and died in prison 5 years later. The trial that followed captivated the public's attention. Newspapers were filled with dramatic accounts of the robbery and the subsequent manhunt. People were eager to learn the identities of the criminals involved and the details of how they pulled off such an audacious heist. The judge presiding over the case, Mr. Justice Bridge, described the robbery as the most audacious and professional in the history of crime. The sentence he handed down to the gang members reflected the gravity of their offense. Buster Edwards and his accomplices were locked up, but the money was not. Despite the best efforts of the police, a large portion of the loot was never recovered. Some of it turned up in the Netherlands, but the whereabouts of the majority of the stolen cash remains a mystery to this day. The Great Train Robbery shocked the world, and it still captures imaginations today. The audacious planning and execution of the heist have made it one of the most famous robberies ever attempted. Books, movies, and documentaries have been made about it, keeping the memory of this incredible crime alive for future generations. But here's a question for you. Where do you think the missing millions went? Was it stashed away in secret hiding places, or was it squandered on luxury items and wild spending sprees? Perhaps some of it was even invested in legitimate businesses, allowing the criminals to live comfortably under false identities. Whatever the truth may be, it's likely that we'll never know for sure. The Great Train Robbery remains a fascinating and enduring mystery. The audacious planning and execution of the heist continued to captivate people around the world. If you love true crime and mysteries, then make sure to subscribe to our channel. We bring you the most legendary heists, unsolved cases, and chilling crimes, all based on real events. From infamous bank robberies to mysterious disappearances, we've got it all. So why wait? Click that subscribe button and join our community of mystery lovers. You can also check us out on social media for more updates and exclusive content. Together, let's unravel the most perplexing puzzles and hunt for answers. Don't miss out. Subscribe today and let the mystery unfold. Now it's time to hear from you. What do you think happened to the missing millions? Leave your theories in the comments below. Who knows, maybe one day the truth will be revealed. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on our channel.